G'day, I'm Joel Rasmussen from Fight News Australia, and today, ahead of his UFC debut, I'm speaking to Mr. Stephen Erceg. Steve, thank you so much for talking to me again. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on.
Absolutely. How good does it feel to hear those words ahead of his UFC debut?
Yeah, it's very exciting. Like it's been a long time where I thought I was gonna I thought I was gonna have a fight, and then it setback after setback. So yeah, to finally be 3 days out or whatever it is, it's a good feeling.
Excellent. How has fight week been? I saw a clip of you before signing the event posters. How is the whole glitz and glamour of being a UFC fighter?
Yeah, it's quite cool. Like I think most of it feels like a normal fight week. You go out, you're walking around the neighborhood, sitting in your room watching TV, whatever it is, and there's some things like they'll supply you meals and obviously there's a lot of extra media stuff and you get to sign the post and you see all these people you see on television that you sort of like look up to and all that sort of stuff. So that's quite cool. It's a little bit surreal, but yeah, it's again like any other day.
If we could travel back to that time in Perth, your last fight in Perth, in the cage right after the fight, you gave this very impassioned speech. How did it feel to come out of the cage and then get the nod from the UFC?
Oh yeah, it was great. You work your whole life for something and you have no guarantees, especially after the visa problem to start with, that you even will make the UFC, right? Like, I don't know how many years it's going to take of fighting on the local circuit again till I get another opportunity. But I did know they're in the building, so I wanted to make sure the fight was everything that I put everything into it that I could, and yeah, obviously they're looking for stuff outside of that too. So I tried to make sure the speech meant something, and yeah, they seemed to enjoy it or they just liked what they saw, and yeah, it was very exciting to get the nod.
How soon after something like that? I saw an interview with you backstage where you say, I've just been told I'm joining the UFC.
Yeah.
How quickly between getting out of the cage and doing that interview do you get told, yeah, man, you're in?
I think that was 10 seconds apart. So I just finished talking to the Hunter and Mick Maynard, and then they sort of ushered me over and I did that interview, and I wasn't sure if I was allowed to say anything or not. Um, but it was like they asked me directly, and I just answered the question honestly. So um, yeah, it was a bit of a weird situation.
Last time we spoke, uh, you spoke about how you can't push any harder. You're putting everything you can into this. And obviously, it's gotten you to the highest level of the sport. That being said, I know you haven't had your UFC debut yet, but does it feel different at all? Like the mentality or anything like in this camp?
No, I mean, I'm always the guy in front of me. I always have great respect for, whether he's a UFC fighter or not. So I'm treating him like he's out there to stop me from reaching my dreams, right? So I'm trying to do everything in my power in training to make sure I'm going to get the nod. And yeah, it just happens that now everybody's going to be a little bit better, right? So yeah, nothing really changes.
You were originally slated to fight Clayton Carpenter. That was the fight that you called for at Eternal. Uh, it gets pushed back due to visa issues again, and then the fight falls through. Clayton pulls out. How did you feel hearing that Clayton had pulled out of the fight?
Obviously, I was disappointed, but I think my first reaction was like, that's sort of my luck. Um, yeah, I got my visa through, so now it should be smooth sailing. He gets injured, like nothing against him. Like people get injured as part of the game. Just seems like the way the cookie crumbles. But yeah, as it turned out to be a much better opportunity anyway. So it worked out for the best, I think.
Talking about that opportunity, then you get the call. Like how soon after finding out that the Clayton fight was off that you get this call? We want you to step in on short notice against a top 10 opponent.
It was the same phone call. So they said, just so you know, Clayton's out, but we have another opponent that you've been offered, which is David Dvorak, number 10. And yeah, obviously I was taken aback by the date because I expected him to sort of say July 1st as well. But I mean, after 30 seconds of thinking about it, I was like, well, this is a great opportunity, numbered card. Quickly talked to my coach and stuff, but yeah, I was down for taking it. Yeah, always ready. Just what you're ready for, right? Short notice opportunities. So here to take full advantage of it.
When you're in a camp and I know you're preparing for one guy, you're working on your own game. As you said, you go out there, you treat all these, the fights the same to do your best and put your will on your opponent. Does the camp have to switch up? Both because it's a new opponent and it's a shorter camp now. Does it ramp up in intensity after that phone call?
So I only had, I think, one day. I think it was 1 day or 2 days maximum of camp, I guess. So I had one really hard session, and then got on a plane pretty much. So no, nothing really changed in the fight camp.
Overall, how would you rate the first UFC fight camp experience? I know you just said that it's short notice, a top 10 opponent. You didn't really get one because you have 1 day. How would you overall rate your first UFC fight camp?
I think it's great. The hardest part, I think, is the fight camp, like day in, day out of people trying to beat you up all the time. You're tired going to each session, drained all the time. So, yeah, I get to do 1 day of it and I get to do the most enjoyable part, which is the fighting part. So, bring it on.
I know you're looking at the opponent that's in front of you, and I would never, ever encourage a fighter to look past the person who's standing right in front of them. That being
Yes.
said, there is a UFC Australia card coming up later in the year. Is
Yeah.
that anything that is that at all in the mind of maybe getting on that September card?
100%. Like, I want to fight in front of friends and family live. Friends and family in Sydney. So having heaps of people come over for that, hear the roar of the Australian crowd, be amazing. So yeah, as long as there's no injuries and that sort of thing, I'll definitely be pushing for Sydney.
And as I mentioned, and it seemed the way that you really want this Clayton Carpenter fight, but now obviously you're fighting a top 10 opponent, David Duvac. If do you call for the Clayton Carpenter fight next? Like, it's almost like, yeah, what is after the top 10? I'm sure, I guess after you get in the top 10, the next guy is top 9. Is that a fight that would still interest you or not really?
Look, the fight still interests me, but I think he has to. I'd like to see him work up the ranks, and then if he does, it'll be an even bigger fight then. Because at the end of the day, at least I don't like him very much, so I'm still happy to punch him in the face. But I think I'd definitely be looking forward, and if it sort of eventuates in the future, then it'll happen.
I know you're over there on business. How has training and that been in Vancouver?
The first day was a bit rough with like just getting off the plane and stuff. Felt a little bit lethargic, all that stuff. But yeah, straight up like second day, I felt good again. The hardest part's been getting the sleep schedule correct, but last night was my first full night of sleep, so yeah, I'll be good for the next 3 days, and yeah, been fine.
How's the with training? How is the difference in the weather? Obviously, Canada, a bit of in a different environment than Australia.
Yeah, so it's kind of about the same temperature as our winter right now. So it's about 23 degrees or so. So yeah, it's about the same, really.
Okay, cool. So actually not too much to acclimatize to. Your
No,
bones, the joints, the tendons, they aren't frozen. That's always good.
no, I think their winter gets pretty cold, but right now it's nice temperature.
Thank God you're fighting in June. Uh, are you going to get a chance to hang out in Vancouver, maybe see some sights after the fight, or are you coming straight back home?
No, we got some boys from the gym fighting pretty soon after I get back. So I think I get back on the Tuesday night, and they're fighting on Friday night. So I'm definitely coming back straight away, support him, and yeah, back to training straight away.
Last time we spoke, We spoke about love for professional wrestling, Stone Cold Steve Austin specifically.
Yeah.
We're on the global stage now, Stephen.
Yes.
I think we go with Stone Cold Stephen Erceg. Is that a possibility?
Nah, definitely not. I think yeah, he's a great nickname for him, but me stealing it's not something I want to do. So I'm happy with my nickname. Yeah, I'd love to meet him, but I'm not going to take his nickname.
That's fair. I'll push for it every interview, but I always respect the answer, and I respect that. Carve your own path. And
Yeah,
making your UFC debut on short notice against a top 10 opponent, I think that's a pretty good way to carve your own path, don't you think?
I agree. I agree. Make sure you stand out as the toughest guy in the room, right?
Absolutely. Does bringing in what type of mentality do you bring in to your fighting?
Um, I guess I guess it goes to like looking back. Like the reason I started in May is because I wanted to be the toughest guy in any room I walked into, right? And so, um, I can't have some guy thinking he's tougher than me, and David Dvorak obviously does. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said yes. So I got to go out there and prove that I'm the toughest guy in the room, and we'll move on to the next guy after him.
Stephen, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a very busy man, and so I really appreciate you giving me some of your time. You fight David Dvorak, top 10 opponent, UFC 289, Sunday the 11th for us back home in Australia, Saturday the 10th for you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the chat.